Yeah, what we're going to talk about is house energy, how our ancestors arranged the houses, and the science of how to place the furniture, and the mirrors, the windows, and stairs in your house to produce the most energy, the most positive form of energy. Now I'm going to go to the transparency so you can get an idea what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, this science has been much misaligned and abused by other cultures because the information in Africa has been dispersed all over. The Buddhists have some, the Chinese, the Japanese. When we did our mercantile system out of the Pacific Basin, we did a lot of trading with the Japanese and Chinese and Asian people, and they have our information, which they have stolen and called their own, along with the Europeans coming out of the Greeks and the Romans, of course. So all the information was dispersed. But it came from down in this area here with the new people, sometimes called the Twa, and they moved up to Egypt and brought the information. But the information originates down here by the Mountain of the Moons, Lake Victoria, down in the southern part of Africa with the new people, sometimes called the Twa. Now the furniture and everything in African culture has a functional purpose, such as this game sometimes referred to as chess and Chinese checkers and that sort of thing. But actually this is a divining instrument. As you can see, it has the Trinity in it, the body, mind, and soul, or Kabaku, and it has the chakra areas in your body. And the practitioner would divine or get the energy directly from God to tell how your body was and how to after the diagnosis was done, the pieces were placed on this board to give energy and perfect the healing. These feet here indicate, like you see the feet on the Sphinx, indicating that kind of energy, which some people relate to Taurus. Today you see with tassels on the shoes, which the Europeans used to imitate claws on animals, which means they are capturing or they empower, so they wear the tassels on their shoes. But that comes out of African science. But this is all about energy and how to capture it and restore it, as reflected in our furniture and as reflected in our houses. And look at this stool here. You can see the intertwining snakes here, which represents the female and male principle intertwined against the scepter of God, representing the energy force fields in the body. All this is a language. And this language expresses the energy and is used to capture the energy and regenerate the energy in the person who uses the stool. Everything has a functional purpose in African culture. Nothing was done just for how pretty it looks. This, as you can see, is the cat, which represents the female. We have the double Haru principle, and there you can see where the McDonald's stole their symbol from. This is the double Haru. And all this is used to generate energy in McDonald's, the double Haru principle. Everyone is using our art form and our architectural language and our furniture language except us. But we have to Sankofa that and recapture it. Here we have this stool, or chair as you may call it today, on the right angles, which is the angle in which military men stand in, meaning they're correct, the angle of Ma'at. And now you see this right angles here. That's why people give you a square business, which means Ma'at business. That's where you get these terms from. I'm just pointing to the functional use and purpose and such things that we take for granted, but are actually mapped out and scientifically done. Here we have a 3,000-year-old painting, of course, from the pyramids, indicating this couple sitting on a bed, as you can see. And again, we have the reflection of the chakras down the bottom here, and these positions here generate energy, the restoration of the body, mind, and soul. Nothing accidentally done here. We have the divining Ankh that we don't use today that much, but it's used in ancient medical science. And of course, he's holding a flail, which has the main energy centers in your body, the Kabaku again, the cat of nine tails, as you would call it today, representing the body, mind, and spirit, and the three levels of it. 3 times 3 is 9. That's why they use 9, and that is what's on the flail there. Everything is functional. It's just a matter of understanding the language. Just showing you some of this furniture, because a lot of us really don't know that this furniture comes from Africa. Like the chairs that we sit in, all of this ancient chairs about 3,000–4,000 years old. All this comes out of our motherland. We need to recapture that so we can recapture the glory of our culture once again. Now I'm going to go ahead a little faster here. Now for those who are just mundane and just didn't get the point, our ancestors wrote on everything. They're quite literate. They did have an oral tradition, but our ancestors were quite literate. They wrote on everything: coffins, floors, combs, ceilings, and this chest here, which has the language up on there, but also the symbolical representation of Ma'at, with the angles, with the chakra fields in your body. I'm showing you the medical purpose of this to help you understand your body as well as your mind as well as your spirit. That's the purpose of our furniture and of our house, to help us better utilize our body, our mind, and our spirit, a holistic science. Let's progress a little further here. I was talking about the chest, but I failed to show you the pieces there, as we call it today. The most powerful piece on the board was the queen. Here you see one of our ancestors playing the game, which they attribute to the Europeans these days. Now, what does all that mean? What practical purpose does it serve? Why did our ancestors place their houses and the furniture and everything in a particular pattern here? Let me see if I can make that sharper for you. One of the two houses for women belonging to Evie. Now you see the placement of the furniture, you see the harp in a certain position. This musical instrument helps to harmonize the energy in that corner of the house. You see what you call David's harp. You see the balancing here to achieve more balance in that area of the house, as well as that area of your mind and your spirit. This placement of furniture is not accidental. This is the furniture in the house. As you can see the chairs, you can see the table with the vase on it. You can see the columns here, which we call the netters, meaning the rays of God, which some people allude to being the 10 Commandments. Netters and neteru, coming from the word nature. These are how our houses look. We were not living in huts. We were living in houses. This is a house in Africa. It's a country house. This is before the European invasion. It's a 3,000-year-old house. This is how we lived. It is no accident why we have these 4 columns up here. 3 major windows, body, mind, and spirit. And on the side you have the male principle and female principle. The windows are placed here for a particular energy force field. You want the energy to be able to come in and go back out. You have the major male and female principle setting on the blossom, the lotus flower, being born again into the heavens. You have again that square I showed you where the statue, the stool was on, of Ma'at, which all the ancient statues are sitting on that Ma'at square. On the corner is a little black cubicle where you have the Muslims today running around that black cube. All that comes out of Africa. This is an ancient house. This is how we lived. The traveling people, the salesmen, they made these temporary dwellings called huts, but we did not live in huts. We lived in high-rise apartment buildings, as evidence of those we built in Central America. Let's see if this is quite clear. This is another house in Africa, about 3,000 years old at the least. Now again, we have these 2 windows. We have the male and female principle. We have the chakras here, the major energy force fields within the man and woman. Then we have the square there, meaning that the relationship is based on Ma'at. We have the door here, which, and of course the columns, which allow the energy to go out and come back around. Then we have the balancing center here on the stand, which you call the scales of Ma'at, meaning this person is balancing this energy force field. Everything was meticulously laid out and planned scientifically by our ancestors. Again, we have this energy force fields, which you call today chakras, represented here by these circles, and the columns which generate that energy upward and disperses it around the house. It captures the electromagnetic energy. Triangles capture energy in circles. Around the triangles or pyramids are circular energy, the regeneration of the body, mind, and spirit. And this is what is occurring here with these spins here. Underneath the column, you have the regenerative principle, generating the body, mind, and spirit. And what we call electromagnetic spins of the left and electromagnetic spins of the right. I'm going to show you where this all comes from, but first I want to make it quite clear how we lived and how our residents were. This is a typical residence of wealthy Egyptians in the time of the 18th dynasty. These are the houses we lived in, the residential areas. And again, we see that theme of the Trinity, as you call it, the Kabaku, body, mind, and spirit, as the Europeans call it. We call it spirit, mind, and body. Spirit, mind, and body. Then you have the major chakras in the body, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 major cycles. That's going with the spins. You have 8 cycles. You have cycles of 8, cycles of 7, cycles of 9 in the body. Then we have the cycles of 4, and each one of these represent an energy force field. Then we have the energy coming out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have these 5 major energy windows, which you find on the pyramids. The pyramid has 5 corners, and the one corner in the middle, which is the capstone. And this represents that energy force field, which we call in our mythological story Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. And they're all balanced by Ra, or the God force. This is an architectural language which expresses energy. But to someone who doesn't know anything about it, it's simply just a design. Then we have flags up in the corner, which you may not be able to see too clearly. Flags help disperse energy, and it also gathers energy. Now, I know that we have been introduced, some of us, to this by the Asians and how they got it from us and distorted it and called it their own for some reason, probably because they're racist. But the houses themselves are structured based on the body. This is a newborn infant, and this is the floor plan, and the floor plan of this house is laid out according to the structure of the body. They do that with churches as well. You can see this is the crown, and you see this is the crown in the church or the pulpit where the minister stands, and the level of consciousness. The ventricles are here. This is the opening to the black dot or pineal gland. We have the energy force fields in the cervical area, in the lumbar area. So this temple or house is laid out according to the structure of the body, which is the first temple. It's all scientifically done. There's nothing haphazard about it. Now, what are they doing? How do they translate this language? Sometimes we use it in the Sabayet. Sabayet. We use it that way. Now, if you were to lay out your house, you base it on a floor plan. Let me get a floor plan for you. But notice that each one of those areas there has a name. You have at the top, let me bring it down for you some so you can see it. At the top, nature or health and God. Then you have marriage and information. That section of the house will represent information or marriage. And then you have a section representing wealth or plans. And you have family and children. And I'm going to place a room on there so you can see what I'm talking about in specifics. And then you can see how this is using the floor plan. Now I'm going to take a floor plan of a house. That's one, mind you. Now watch this. Now, this is the floor plan. See that? Now, look down here. This is the door. Say if you have an apartment or a house and you come into the door and you have a hallway, then you turn to the right to enter into the living room. Now, where is that energy lie in the living room? So what we have to do now is turn it around this way, because this is how you enter the room. See? You're coming into the door, entrance to the living room here. Now I'm going to lay the Shibayet right on top of it so you can see how to divide up that room. See? Now, where you walked in that is where you enter life is you enter life in the village, in your society, in your community. So therefore, when you enter the room, it's based right here. Now, over on this side, you would place things that represent justice or reciprocity or ma'at. The symbol of that would be a flower or a leaf. Some people use a feather. Most of them use feathers today, and sometimes you see a scale. So you would put a scale or feather in this part of your room. Over in this section here, we have people. So if you're having problems with people and you want to balance that, say that your relationship with people is kind of like topsy-turvy, and you need support and strength in that area, you may put an African cane in that area of your room. Just place it against the wall because you need support and strength in your relationship to people, or in your relationship with your children. Or you want more spirituality in your children, so you would put an ankh in this part of your room, part of your floor plan. We're looking at the floor plan from the top down. Then you want more wealth. So you would have to put something here to increase wealth. What gives birth to wealth? Something that gives birth, like a flower or a fruit or a plant, you would place here to increase your wealth. Because we're putting the floor plan, as you can see, of the house. Now remember, I had you walking in the door, but that's not where your energy enters this room. The energy enters the room here, and that's why I had to turn the floor plan around like that. Then I placed the Shibayet in there. These are the 8 degrees of life. And this is how you would lay out your room. Having problems with marriage, then you want to put a healing force there. You may want to create more harmony there, so you may put a wind chime there, some kind of mobile. Some people like to use chimes. And in the symbol of Ma'at, some people like to use water, the water spirit, because a lot of us come from the water cultures around the sea coast. A lot of Gullah people from Tidewater, Virginia, down parts of Maryland, down all the way to Mayport, Florida. It's a lot of Gullah people inland for about 50 miles, and then on the islands, of course. So we are accustomed to the water spirit. So a lot of times we use water as it's symbolized by the amniotic fluid, which means that giving rebirth to new energy, to more purity. So you may put some people like those fish tanks and things of that sort. I'm not into keeping fish as prisoners myself, but I understand that. So if you don't have that, then you may want to use a pitcher where it has water in it to put on the wall. Or you may want to use the symbolic representation of water in colors like blue. You may use a blue tablecloth or some blue artifacts of some sort, statue or something along that line to symbolize you wanting more harmony and balance in the marriage. Now that's just one way of laying out a floor plan. There are many systems. I'm going to show you the ones that are most popular. But they're all based on this one centralized truth. Sometimes we want to see this energy classification like we were talking about earlier, because we are talking about Pher, which means house, and Shefat, which means energy. So we have these 2 major categories of the male and female energy. This being male, Osiris, and this being female, or Isis. So we have these symbolic, some people don't like all of that kind of breaking up the room, so they would probably just want to use the male and female principle. Then you place that over it, as you can see. Now what you want to take note of is some people like to have this energy like ground in their house where there's the most traffic or the most walking. Well, that would be south. So the female is south and the male is north. So they just divide up their house just north and south. Now we see that with that division, let me move this off for you. With that division, we have these colors, as you can see. The colors for Osiris, or the male principle, are orange and red and yellow. Sometimes you want to get more of your ability to build or to destroy. Or destroy means you're giving birth to something again, so you want to destroy some old habit so you can create a new habit. So you would use yellow or orange or red to symbolize that you're destroying this kind of energy. You don't need it in your presence. And that can also be symbolized by some electrical device like a radio, or putting your computer in that area. But if you have your computer or television in that area, that's blocking the energy up against the wall, so you would put a mirror in back of your computer or television or stove so you can reflect the energy back out into your house. The mirror reflects energy back. The mirror is also symbolic of the water or the sky because it reflects the sky. So you will reflect the sky back into the house. So you put a mirror in back of your television or computer or stove to reflect energy back into your house. Now, if you were dividing up your house simply into male and female, then you would use blue and indigo in this area here to symbolize the female principle, or something you want to build, something new in your life. You want a new beginning, you would put blue to symbolize that. I'm back to this same principle if you want to use the degrees of nature. I'm saying that you can use the colors on this. I'm saying that you want to destroy something so you can have a space for something new to come into it. Then you will put the color here, yellow or red or orange. So you can destroy something like arguments in your marriage or arguments with your significant other. You want to destroy that kind of energy. So you put red there to destroy that. And then you want more harmony, so you put blue, a blue piece of cloth, and then place a feather on it, which means you put in more balance in the female part, principle of your relationship. It can get involved, but it's a very simplistic way of doing it now. It's not confusing because we're going to go step by step so you can see. I'm showing you once again that Shefat chart that I just showed you, more simplistically written, because when we're dealing with the male principle, we're dealing with action and mental, protection, order, destroy, or you want to take. If you want to destroy something, you want protection from something, you want to protect your family more, you would use the colors orange, red, yellow, because that's a symbolic colors of protection or action, or you want to think more, put more positive thinking in some area. You want to take charge of your economic situation, then you would put the color red or orange or yellow over here in wealth. Because you want to take charge of that more. Maybe your money is just going away from you too fast. You say, no, I need to take charge of this. I need to claim that for myself so I can be in command. So you use that color. Now, as you can see from the female principle, we have intuitive, we have growth, we have harmony. You want to build or you want to give. Male take and female give. So you want to give more closeness or more togetherness. So you would put blue or indigo or green as symbolic of giving or building. Now all of this is coming off the same chart as I mentioned before, the Shefat. Now I've broken the room down into just 4 quadrants. Same room, same energy force field. That's straight for you, man. Is that clear? Good.
So I said focus on each one as you talk about each one.
Okay. Now then, we have. I have you walking in the room, remember, and I'm placing this room right over here. So you can do floor plans over there. Now you can see that over here, in the left corner, is symbolizes air, or Ma, which is symbolic of oxygen, yellow, negative ion, vitamins, the sweet taste. You see the pancreas and spleen, if you want to get into the anatomy. So what I want is for air, and I want to give more energy to the air, or thinking processes, some people relate that to, then what I would do is put fruit there. I would put fruit in this corner, this quadrant of the room. Symbolize more air or thinking, more positive thinking. You want to give birth to that. Now if I want to go to the fire section or a fifth section of the room, which is symbolic of carbon, red, negative ion, vitamins, and pungent taste. Pungent is the taste of ginger root. So I want to get more fire, more energy. I want more spunk in this part of my life, or this part of my family, or relationship, or economics, or my career. Then I will put something that's pungent, like ginger or garlic, in this section of the room. On as the older people call it, knick-knack shelf, or part of your decor, your statue. You may have a statue, a fertility statue, you put ginger around it or garlic around it. And that would help create more of that energy. Now I walked in the room, and to my right, immediately to my right, is the earth or Ta section of my life, or my family, or my career. And that's symbolic of indigo and minerals, and it's a bitter taste. So you'll put something, if you want to use food, you would put something that has a bitter taste, or a picture of something that has a bitter taste hanging on the wall there. Anything bitter, a lemon tree, or something yellow, symbolic of that, right in this room, to get that much energy into your life, or career, or family. And over in the left-hand corner, as I walk into the room, is water, or mu'i, which is symbolized by hydrogen and blue and positive ions and minerals and a salty taste. And that's when you get into the seaweeds. They sell dry seaweeds in the health food store. So you would do that because you want to hold more emotional strength in your life. Water being symbolic of emotions. You have problems with your emotions, go up and down, you can't control them well, or someone is able to beat you up with their emotions. And some people can just talk to you and get you all upset and get you worried and things like that, meaning that they can change and shift your emotions around. So you want to stabilize those emotions, so you get yourself some seaweeds, and you can get them at the health food dry seaweeds at the health food store and put in that corner of the room. And that can be done around a statue, or it can be placed around the frame of a picture. You can be as creative as possible with this placement. Now that's just using the energy classification chart. Now I'm going to show you how that's divided up in the room to make it much more clear. Don't want anyone to get lost here. Now we have the element chart, as I was showing you before, with that air and the fire and the water and the earth. The element division of the room. Now, you want to have more faith, and you want to have more, listen to your intuitive ability more. A lot of people say, you know, before I did something, our voice told me not to do that, and I knew better, and I just knew I shouldn't have did this and that. That means you lack intuition strength. So you want to increase your intuition strength, so you would use red. You want to increase your faith to believe in yourself, to believe you can overcome whatever the obstacle is. So you would use the symbolic color of fire, which is red. And you know you're not able to think through problems well. You may have problems sorting out something that's going on in your life, or something that's happening in your life, or your career choice, or whether you should move here or move there. So you need to increase that kind of thinking or intellectual power, so you use yellow. Now I also have the signs of the Zodiac associated with that, therefore you can use those Zodiac symbols as well. In place of the fire, you may not want to use red. You may want to use a symbol of Aries or Sagittarius or Leo. You can use the Zodiac symbols. That's what I'm trying to say. There's many ways to do this. Using the Zodiac, using colors, using magnets, using fruit, using pictures of fruit, pictures of the Zodiac. There are many ways to do it. You can be quite creative, because us African folks are very creative. So it should be very easy for us to get into this like our ancestors did. As I showed you in the houses, I'm going to show you some more where they use all this. Or you can use the symbol of Gemini. Gemini can deal with negative and positive energies, can flip-flop, and is able to be more creative with all these dual personalities. So you may want to be able to increase your ability to deal with a lot of different people, get on your nerves or something. So you can use the symbol of Gemini, you can use the symbol of Libra or Aquarius, you can use the color yellow. And again, to this emotion or water, which is feelings. You can use the symbol of a family, and unity, and being able to bond tightly. You're having problems bonding with yourself, your past hurts and all that, so you can get rid of them. You're always trying to just skip over your past hurts instead of bonding with them and purifying them. You can use the symbol of Scorpio, you can use Pisces, or you can use blue in that corner of your room, or your living room, or your kitchen, or that corner of your wall. Remember, this is any flat surface, the floor as well as the wall. You can divide the wall up in air, fire, water, and earth. You can divide the floor up that way. You can divide the ceiling up this way. Because we have limited spaces, because a lot of us rent our facilities, so we can't really design the house or living room or bedroom that way, but we can do this in the ceiling as well, putting the symbol of red in the corner. In this case, you want to deal with the ability to receive more power, to receive more energy, and to circulate that in all your life, in everything and in all situations. You want to receive more positiveness. So in this section of your floor, this section of the ceiling, this section of the wall, if you want to program your wall to do this, then you would use indigo or green, or the symbol of Taurus or Virgo or Capricorn, if you're aware of that. Just want you to be able to use this power. And I'm going to break this zodiac down a little further, so we are breaking down the room here for you. Is that clear? Let's see, that's clear. Now, this is done to the floor, your floor plan, your wall plan, your ceiling plan, your desk, your table. This is done to your car. This is how you program energy for your benefit instead of letting someone program it for you, because people do this for you. If you're not controlling it, someone or something is controlling it for you. Rest assured of that. Now, if we were to program the floor and the furniture and the placement of the furniture and chairs, we're using the houses of the zodiac. All I did was take the houses of the zodiac and place it over here. As you can see, I have the 9th and 7th house over here. Then I have the 4th and 5th house here. Then I have the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd house here. And of course the 10th, 11th, and 12th house here. I just place the houses against the floor plan, or against the ceiling, or the wall, or the desk, or the table. And this is how they made the shields, the shield of David, the shield of Solomon. Those fighting shields you see, they were programmed with this kind of energy. Now we have blue, which is sometimes associated with religion, or Sagittarius, meaning travel. You want to go somewhere, you want to get those plans more positive and set. This is how you program travel, religion, and your possessions, and sex, and Scorpio. So you're having problems sexually, or the reproductive system, or prostrate, and you will use the symbol of Scorpio to help get that energy in a positive way. You have indigo, which indicates your spouse, your husband or wife. You're having problems with that, or want to harmonize it more. You do that in this section, quadrant of the floor, or for furniture, or with a statue or some sort of decoration. And you want more intellectual power, there's Libra. Now we go over to the next quadrant here, which is red for credit. Some of us have bad credit. Some of us don't have any credit. And some of us aren't going to get any credit either, the way things are going, to tell you the truth. But nonetheless, we need a lot of power in that way. So we use red to increase our ability to get better credit. And Capricorn represents your career. So you want to change your career, or make sure you're making a positive change. You want to use that Capricorn energy more. So you use the symbol of Capricorn, or you can use red as a symbol of Capricorn. Now you need to know more about science, the science of controlling your diet, the science of mathematics. You have problems figuring out your budget or something of that sort. And you want to relate better in society, so you use the symbol of Aquarius. Or you can use green. And we have blue for plans, how you're going to plan your vacation, how you're going to plan your trips, how you're going to plan dealing with someone, just formulating plans, because everything is done with a plan. including this floor plan. Everything requires plans. And then you may have a lot of enemies, or you don't have any enemies at all. You want to protect yourself from enemies, so you use Pisces, and you may want to use like a sword. Some people use our ancient letter openers as a symbol of protection from our enemies, and you put that in that quadrant of your house. That's why you see letter openers laying on desks and things of this sort. They're not used for opening letters at all. It'd be very statuesque with some sort of African carving on it. That person is using that for protection. They're just not telling you. Now, in the other quadrant, remember we're just walking in the door. Don't get lost now with the placement there, the floor plan. Remember we walked in the door. Let me show that, it's maybe not too clear. We walked in the door here, and then we divided the room up that way. We have red, symbolic of health, and Aries, the symbol of intuition, and indigo for trade, businesses, entrepreneurship, and Taurus representing money, and yellow represents medias of all sorts, letters, television, communications of all sorts, writing, and Gemini representing transportation. Then we have violet for family, and land. It can be a picture of land. It doesn't necessarily have to be the object. It can be a picture of the object, or a picture of a family, African painting of a family, or statues of a family. You want to increase that energy, more bonding in your family. So you would use that. Then we have orange for children in school. You're having problems with your children in school. They need some more support. They need more nurturing. So what would you do? You may use a cane of some sort, saying you want more support in that area. Just placing it in the corner. You want to spiritualize your children more. And a lot of our older parents would use a wish broom. And they would just bang or tack a wish broom on the wall, and you wonder why the wish broom is on the wall when you come in their house. They may not be able to tell you, but it comes out of this African science of house energy, programming your house to bring that energy in or get rid of that energy inside of you. And we have red for weather, and for material possessions we have the symbolic symbol of Virgo there. This is the basic mechanics of this house science that you may have been hearing, that some people call it feng shui, but they don't want to use. I showed you the oldest paintings and drawings of African houses, so you see where it comes from. And some people have maybe more adapt to the language of Kwanzaa. Now, when you program your house, some people say, I got to cleanse my house before I program it. So what you do is, you may want to get some dried bay leaves and sprinkle them on the floor in the furthest most part of your house away from the door, and then sweep those bay leaves out from the rear of your house all the way out the front door. And that cleanses your house to program it for this. First you have to cleanse the house. Some people use this whisk broom that they don't use to sweep the floor. They just symbolically just go through the house sweeping it to purify it, so you can program it for this. Some people may want to use the symbols of Kwanzaa, but they may know the language better than the ones I showed you. Again, the floor placement. You're walking into the door. Now we divide the room up, or the ceiling, or the wall. So at the top here we have Imani, which is faith and spirituality. You want more spirituality in your life. You want more strength in that area. You want to be more aggressive with your spirit. You don't want to be so passive and let things just happen to you. So you use the male principle to get more aggressiveness and more protective of your spirit. There's no need of buying a Mercedes or a Rolls Royce or a Cadillac and not having bumpers on it. You have to protect whatever it is that you have. So you use the male principle to symbolize protecting your spirituality so it can grow properly. Then we have Kuumba, which is information, creativity. You're not being creative enough in your plans or in your relationship or how you deal with money or how you deal with your problems. You're just stuck using the same system all the time and you're not getting anywhere with it, so you know you have to be more creative with it. So you use Kuumba, the symbol of Kuumba, or things that represent creativity. The statue of a lady nurturing a child, which we call the Madonna, which means creativity. And then we have this section of the room representing Ujema, money, cooperation, and economics. So you know you need more money, but you don't want to get it from robbing a bank. You want to get it in a cooperative fashion so it can be positively used. So you use the symbol of money. You may use a picture of a dollar or some coins, pennies, nickels, in a little vase, and put that in there. And then put some colors over it, such as the symbol of energizing that more. You may put some red petals from a flower and then some yellow petals of a flower mixed with your money there to symbolize protection of your money and the coming of more money. So we're dividing up the room based on the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. We use the 8 principles of Sebiet. These are all the principles. But basically, some of us may be more familiar with this. That's why I use Umoja and the principles of Kwanzaa. Umoja, unity, children, marriage, and people. You need strength in that area. You need strength in Ujema, collective responsibility, working more as a unit. Some couples don't work well as a unit, so you may need strength in that area, so you program that area. And I'm going to show you where we get these items to program with. They're not just falling out of the sky. We're going to get to the various items you can use. Then you need Kuchi Chakalia, or self-determination, which is based on Ma'at. You need more justice, and which is reciprocity, payback. You should get what you give in return. You want to be paid back for your kindness, for your attention. So you want to generate that reciprocity, which is all coming out of Ma'at. And then Kuchi Chakalia again, which is coming out of institutions of businesses. You want them to be more just in your dealings with them, with your employment. We have community reciprocity, and we have the institutions of the community reciprocity, or Kuchi Chakalia. And then we have Nia, purpose. Your purpose is given to you by your village. Some people just think that they can help out the black community by going to one AA or NAAC meeting a year. They're really not giving to the community, so they're not going to get back. So you may want to participate, but don't know how, and get tired of going to meetings that go nowhere, and always giving money for some cause and not seeing any result of it. Now, here's where we're getting the symbols from. We're going back to our language itself to get the symbols that we need here. Kemetic language. Now, here's a symbol. Now we have the word, the letter T3, and that represents land. Land protects, land is the skin of the earth, where plants grow and ideas grow and wealth grows. So that's why we use land or dirt, or the symbol of dirt, or a picture of dirt. Sometimes you will see dirt in a little bowl with money in it. So right away you know this person's trying to protect that money, and they want more money to grow, and that's why they're using dirt. Or they may use the picture of money in dirt. Now we have a pistol, which looks, we have mortar and pistols that you may see, the pistol, mortar, and pistol you may see is symbolic of the medical drugstores may have them. The mortar and the pistol is used to make healing medicine, or make healing words, or healing spirit. And you can buy a mortar and pistol, usually from health food stores, and you put that in the area that you want more healing done. More healing in your emotions, more healing in your money, more healing in your career, more healing in your relationships, so you use the mortar and pistol. And you may place that in that part of your room, or on your shelf, or on your table, or on your desk. Another item that can be used is a dagger or sword, as I mentioned before. You see people that buy little swords, or symbols of swords, which is like a letter opener, as I mentioned before. You're going to separate the good from the bad, the past from the future. Some people just ooze everything together and get in this one habit of always responding the same way they responded 10 years ago. You got to cut that out. You got to break yourself from those past bad behaviors. So you get something symbolic of breaking the past bad behaviors you had with money, with relationship, with your jobs. So you place that in that section of the room. Remember the sections of the room that I showed you before, how we divided up the room. You want to get out your bad habits of dealing with money, you put that letter opener in this section of the room. You may place it on a cabinet, you may place it on a desk, you may put it on the wall. Some people use the fork and the spoon. You see these big forks and spoons on the wall, and you wonder where it's coming from? Coming from this programming out of house energy. And all that's derived from our language. You get yourself a nice Kemetic dictionary, and you can look it up. Look up the words, and you'll see the symbols right there before you. It's right in our language, in our vocabulary. We have the palm branch. That's where we get these palm leaf brooms from, what you call whisk brooms. That's what it was used for. You want to purify something. Something is just not altogether right in your thinking, in your emotions, in your work, in your job, in your relationship to your children, in relationship to money. So you want to purify that, get a fresh start, as it were. And that's why we have these palm brooms on our shelves, on our desks, on the wall, in certain sections of the room. That's why we use it. Then we have the feathers, as I mentioned before, which is symbolizing rightness or reciprocity, which we call payback and balance and harmony. And that's why we would use a feather or a picture of a feather or a bird which has feathers. That's why you see birds in people's houses, pictures of birds. They're trying to program it to get this kind of energy in their life through their house. And then we have the walking stick, or cane as we call it today, to give you strength and love and power. We're getting the actual things that we need, the tools we need, either as a decorative ornament or a painting. You can draw it. It doesn't matter. We're getting it actually from our language. There's no mystery. That's why we have the vocabulary. That's why we have the Kemetic vocabulary in dictionaries to give us the tools we need. And we have to start using these tools. Everything has a functional purpose in African culture. So we've got to go back and capture that. And we use a bowl. That's why people have bowls in their house, because they want to receive more blessing. They want to receive more knowledge, more information, more carriage, more spirituality. Some people use it because they want to receive more money and get a raise, so they use a bowl. I mean, there are people that you can use this. And then, of course, we use water, a pitcher of water, or some people use these aquariums and fish tanks and all that sort of thing to build and repair, give blessings and more spirit. We use water. All this is coming right out of our language. We use a Kemetic dictionary. Some people use the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, which they call the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which was called Let There Be Light by our ancestors. Here's more of the Kemetic language and symbols. We have a seat. All major decisions were made, and someone sitting in a seat, the seat of wisdom, the seat of our ancestors, the stool. When you're trying to make a decision of some sort, use a symbol of a seat. Or you can actually use a chair. Some people have little chairs, which you call dollhouse furniture, and they have a little chair in that part of their room next to a sword, next to some money, because they have to make a decision about money. So they do it that way. Then we have baskets, which are made to protect things, to save things. You heard of bread baskets? Those are baskets our ancestors made to protect bread. They also made baskets to protect clothes and seeds and food on the many caravan trails. So whenever you need to protection, use baskets. And many little small baskets you can buy. If you want to protect your money, put some pennies in a basket and put it in that section of your room. Then you'll see cords. Cord wrapped around a stick, which symbolizes bonding. A lot of people use ropes. You see them have even they have braids to represent that. They have some straw braided together, and it'll be laid on their dresser, on their floor, or on the wall to symbolize, to bring togetherness. And of course, plants symbolize growth, and they create a new beginning. And then you have people that do not play chess, but they have it in their house, and you wonder why they have these board games there. Because they have to develop more blessings, develop more money, develop more health. This helps you to program and develop more in your life. So you would use a chess board even though you don't play chess to symbolize that. Or you can use the pieces on the chessboard to symbolize that. And we're back to a band string, which symbolizes unity and bonding. And then we have these, people use these knitting needles. When you're trying to construct something, construct more power, or construct more protection, or construct more blessings, so you have the knitting needles sitting in that section of your room, or your desk, or on your bookshelf, or your entertainment center. You can program them as well. And then we have the fish net. That's for gathering ideas. Use the net to gather fish, and you use the net to symbolize gathering ideas or feelings or power or gathering more unity. So you have a net on your bookshelf or in that section of your room. Remember, you can do your bookshelf, your entertainment center. You can work this same bit of information off your floor plan, because all we're doing is giving energy. We're using our house as a form of energy, which is what it is, because you're in it, and you're energy. But you just want to be more in control. I'll show you here a floor plan, how a person walks into an apartment, and they walk in, there's a little short wall there, but then you have to turn it around and do the programming here. As you can see, this is added on to the major floor plan, so they have an increase of energy here, but they're missing energy here. So they have to build up the energy here. They build it up either with chimes or a statue or mirror or colors, because they're missing this energy in their life from this floor plan. Or, in this case, they have additional energy over here. They have all this energy, but they have additional on that side, based on the floor plan as I showed you before. Now, where does all this come from? It comes from the first temple that we have, the first house that we have, our human body. It all comes from our human body, the science of house energy. This is looking at the brain from the underside up. We have this programming, we have this major sections, one here, one here, one here, one here. You walk into the room this way. It's the same energy. We just do it over and over and over again. It all comes from the original temple, which is your body. Now, with walls, our ancestors did a little something different here. With the walls, we had what we call mirror images. Now, you walk into a pyramid room, and you see a painting on this wall, but the complement to that painting is on the other wall. You have to look at this wall as well as this wall to get the understanding. It's a mirror image. In other words, what you put on this wall can be complemented on the wall opposite it. The two walls together tell the story, not one wall, because we're dealing with the male and the female principle. So one wall is male and the other wall is female. So you use both walls to program the house. They complement each other. Let's go back to the original temple. The original house, which is the source of house energy. This is the original house, as laid down. Your body. Let's make this clearer for you. Now you can see at the bottom, we have the legs, and we're moving up the legs, we're moving all the way up to the body, to the center, moving up to the shoulders, and we're moving up to the brain again. This is the head. And also, it's laid out according to the direct growth and development of the black child. This house, this temple. And it's laid out according to the cycles. And it even has a degree of angles in it. It's replicating these angles. It's staying on this plane, as we call it. So it duplicates this angle all the way. So from the top, you have the head, then you have the growth of the newborn, then you have the growth from 2 to 3, 2 to 5. It's all symbolized by the way the house is laid out, because we're using the original temple for the temple signs, or the house energy signs. Now I'm going to show you the brain and the spinal column as seen on this relief on the wall. This is a bas relief. One of the many stone carvings in Africa in the temples. It's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to show you as we replicate it so you can see it much more clearer. how that relief was done anatomically correct based on the original temple. Because everything comes from the human body. And this temple science of how to arrange your body or your house or your life comes from this main temple, God's temple, which is reflected in our body. Now, when the science gets really more refined, we actually lay things out according to the acupuncture meridians, which can get very much involved, so you would have to have someone who's a master of this science to actually lay it out according to the meridians now. That's a little more intricately involved. But the rooms were laid out according to the areas of the brain that manifest this type of control, which we call neurotransmitters today. And all that comes from the way we're structured from birth, coming from the human development chain. We get into human development. We have these major layers in our body, major skin layers, major developmental areas in our body. We have the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm human development cycles. And our houses and our lives reflect this constantly. And our ancestors were aware of that when we developed the science of house energy. Now I'm going to go back to that human body so you can see that we're precisely on it now. We're on it with the birth cycle. This is the birth cycle, which is reflected in the house. When you're trying to give birth, you're in the south, and you rise in the north. The sun rises in the east, sets in the west. The moon rises in the north, south sets in the north. It's the same principles over and over and over again. The laying out of the house is related to the celestial sphere. As I showed you the signs of the Zodiac, we are connected with the heavens, with the earth, with the seen world and unseen world. All this is a part of our science here. It's repeated over and over again. And I showed you the male and female. And I showed you sections of the brain. We'll move back to the way the house is laid out so you can see that all this science is based on your body. As long as you have your body, you can basically figure this all out. It's coming off the original temple. And this is a church, as it were, we call it today, or a school, or your house. And then we have the first floor and second floor. We would divide the body, the house up that way, the first floor, the lumbar, thoracic, the cervical, and that's how you divide it up to different floors. And they even, when you have a ranch-style house, a flat house, you divide it up that and laid everything out flat, and then you get this kind of projection of the knees, you get the thigh bone, you get the hip bone. This is the naves. You walk into church this way, you go through a little corridor, and then you go to where the congregation sits down, and then you have a little area where the preacher stands, and you have the choir, the senior choir, junior choir, entering into the third eye, as you call it. Because this reflects the third eye, the third ear, the third sense of smell that African people have. And some people would also, our ancestors would also lay out the ground plan of the floor this way too. Instead of using the whole body, sometimes we would just use the head. This is the floor plan. The southern part of the covered temple showing the irregularity of the pattern of the pavement. The pavement itself, which we walked on in our homes, was laid out according to the structure of the original temple of our bodies, which is the original temple. And you can see the floor plan, the stones here were laid out according to the structure of your brain and your eye and your ear. There are those, as I referred to earlier, Asian people who want to say that this is their science, but all documentation points back home. Brothers and sisters, it's quite clear where it comes from. Quite. Again, we're back to this room. We're entering the room, and we have these energy force fields in the room. What they did here was simply use this section here, divided it up. The earth, air, wind, and fire, just divided up these 4 sections here. They have one room representing earth, another room representing fire, one room representing air and water. They just used the rooms themselves instead of subdividing the rooms, the floor plan and the wall. They just had one room totally representing water, or the emotional part of their life, and one room representing fire, so they could program that energy, increase it and lower it according to their will. The hall was neutral, so we want to keep the neutrality of the hall. We don't want to feel like we're bottled up in the hall, so usually we use mirrors at the end of the hall to reflect energy back. And this, of course, is the major room here, where we divided the floor thusly. And then we have the Trinity again, body, mind, and spirit. As we say in Africa, spirit, mind, and body. So we program this room to be spirit, this room to be mind, and this room to be body. And then the major room is divided up into those 4 quadrants that I showed you. This is what is taking place in this ancient Egyptian room. The same process is taking place here. Dividing up a room, just having one room representing the emotions, one room representing the intellect, one room representing growth, rebirth, and then have a major room programmed with the 4 major quadrants in it, as I mentioned before, where we divided this room for the earth, water, air, and fire, and then program these individual rooms for earth, one representing fire, one representing water. I'm just going back home via architecture. I'm going to show you, as I mentioned before, I'm going to show you some of the older houses and how the rooms were programmed. This is the house of Mitir. This is the way it looked from the side. As you can see, the regenerative principle. Again, we have the Kabaku, the spirit, mind, and body, repeated 3 times, the Trinity in that room. See how he programmed each individual room to hold that energy there for him. And then subdivided the major room again, just like I showed you where the knees are, the thigh is, the hip is, the heart is, and this is how it's divided. Remember I showed you the temple, the head, and you had the entrance to the third eye, and you had the senior choir, junior choir, and all that. Again, they programmed the whole house, but you can't really see it that way. It's better seen this way. But it's right before us what's being done. The obvious is right before us. And here's some of our ancient houses. I mentioned before, I want to get that notion out of our head that we lived in some kind of hut. Where we came from. We lived in houses. Some of us lived in high-rise. Some of us lived in row houses. This is a restoration of a house of the old empire. We have the old empire and new empire. They divided up the dynastic eras in that way, the old empire and new empire. And this is a bunch of row houses. And the captivation of the solar energy, which you call solar energy, or whatever they call it today, coming out of Africa, that's science. And again, we crystallize in the power of God here, and then divide it up into the major areas of the spirit, mind, and body, programming the house from the roof. One more here. Again, these are models of old houses, 2,000–3,000 years before the European invasion. We have the 4 major clusters in our body, meridians. We have the male and female principle theme again, male and female principle. Then we have the 4 major quadrants, earth, air, water, and fire again. Same themes repeat themselves. over and over. There's no mystery. The only mystery there is when you lack the knowledge to decipher what's going on. There are some other dangers that we must be aware of and we have to neutralize in our houses, and that comes from radiation. We have to be aware of that kind of radiation. We have sick houses, a lot of us, from the radiation. And it's most deadly upon African people. Radiation from computers, telephone cables, television, microwaves, those beepers, cellular phones. We have to be constantly careful of that. The radiation from stones and concrete, from the formaldehyde, from permanent press, from flame retardants would decrease the sperm count, and all these chemical kind of contaminants in our homes. So we have to be constantly protecting ourselves, our body, our mind, and our spirit, as the Europeans say. And so we should always have some herbs in our house, and we can always use herbs in those areas as a symbol of protection. You can use some echinacea, or golden seal root, or ginger root. We can always use herbs, living plants, in our house to protect our mind, our tuition, our emotions, and our spirit. You can use the herbs themselves. You can use yellow dock flower, dandelion flowers, red clover flowers. You can use the herbs themselves in these quadrants of your house to energize it, to get more protection. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little about house energy, Pher Shefat, and explore it more, because there's many ways to approach it and many things of the dynamics of it all that can be quite interesting when you start seeing the ways to apply it. The thing is that a lot of us are restricted in the way we can do things because we're renting property of others and they designed it for their own house energy and not ours, so we got to reprogram the house. So I was hoping that we could kind of talk about it more.
I was going to ask you if you could elaborate a little bit more about the different rooms that would be placed in different sections of the room. I'm curious.
Well, lavender is used for spirituality, to get more spirit in that.
Okay.
Some people don't handle money spiritually, and if they put more spirit in their approach, it would balance it for them. They're just more or less using money for this mental reasons or for bodily reason, but they miss the spiritual reason. So they have to add more spirituality to that, or sexuality, so you use lavender for that. Or you may want to use more protection of some sort, or cleansing kind of protection, which would be yellow, which would be dandelion flowers or dandelion roots. There are a lot of flowers that are purple or lavender in colors. Garlic flowers is purple, and some people have denial where they're holding in hurt and pain, so they may want to use eyebright because that has that kind of color in the center where it's holding that emotion in the center. So you want to release that more. And releasing that is through sight, and visualizing your pain, and you can release it that way. So you would use eyebright to release the kind of denial, pent-up kind of things that are inhibiting your intuition or money or marriage or children or whichever quadrant you're working in.
Let me ask you another question about the different sections. The air, the fire, the water, and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
The correlation between different colors, let's say like red, could you just put like a red apple in
Yeah, you can use a red
for
apple.
fire?
Mm-hmm.
And say for the section for blue,
Mm-hmm.
you could just put maybe squash or something,
Yeah.
eggplant or something.
Yeah, if you're using plants, some people
Colors.
may use a pattern that has more blue in it, where you put on the wall. You know, it can be really artistic. There's no limit to what you can do.
Okay.
Now, that leads into my question with the colors. You have your primary colors here, but what about the secondary colors? Would that, like a green, would that mean that you're mixing the male and female energy? Well, actually,
Yeah, that's what it would mean. Green is usually in like a balancing kind of color, because that's where the colors come together.
Right.
For balance, and you're right with that. And some people, because of plants, associate green with growth.
Okay.
But the growth only occurs because of the male and female, so you're back to the mixing again, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you spoke one time about magnetism as opposed to electromagnetism. Back in ancient times, we used it.
Yeah.
I was.
Well, a lot of folks like to use the magnets, basically. You have magnetic electrical energy and electromagnetic energy. We're mostly into electromagnetic energy because of the Europeans. Electricity being male and magnetism being female. But you have to use the magnetic electrical energy, which is how our instruments, our light bulbs and things of that sort that were found in the pyramids work. They worked on the magnetic energy, which is less harmful and less abrasive to the system. They use magnetic electrical. The magnetism, if you watch a generator, they have a magnet in the center, and the magnet is generating electricity. It's magnetic electrical energy, but they keep it perverted with by putting it on the wire and making it. They don't use enough magnetism. In other words, when a signal is produced, if you produce a pulse, and you produce this pulse, you change it into a sound, and then you understand it's a sound, but then it gets converted back into a pulse in the nervous system. They don't convert the electrical back to magnetic. That's what I'm trying to say. But in the body, it goes that way. It goes electrical, magnetic, back to electrical. Complete the, with this, they don't let the circle be unbroken. It completes the circle. And you're right, absolutely. So some people do use the symbol of magnetic to keep things flowing. You want to keep the energy flowing, so they use a horseshoe, and the energy keeps flowing. They want the energy to flow. They don't want to get bottled or shut in a corner, so they use a horseshoe, some kind of round object. Our ancestors down in Australia used the boomerang shape to symbolize the energy is flowing. And you do that either in the way you design the artifacts on a bookshelf, or you can do it with a painting. You can do it in many ways. Sometimes they use a half flow with the crossing of the swords, which represents a flow, especially when they put the legs on the cross, which represents the running cross, which we call the swastika, which is the African symbol of flow, the wheel of eternity. So a lot of symbols we could use, we just associate negativity with them, so we just stay away from their own power.
If I wanted to program a room, as far as entering it, I'm not going to use north, south, east, and west. I'm going to use air, fire, water, and earth. And when I go in, it's always going to be air, fire, water, earth. Okay, no matter what room I'm going in.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Windows. How destructive is a room without windows?
Oh my God. You don't want to do that.
I'm thinking like basement type of things where the windows are so small.
You would have to use some mirrors, ladies, to expand that. You would have to use some mirrors across from the window in some way to reflect more of the window, because you're not getting, you're not getting any electrical or magnetic flow that way.
Like these side windows?
No, they're half windows, and then you lower it down in the ground, so that wouldn't be what we're talking about. You're talking about the room itself is lower.
Right,
then you
exactly.
got half window, so you're not getting the full solar. You disperse that, you reflect that, but you let it reflect back onto a crystal. Sometimes they use lamps, sometimes you use an actual crystal that you hang in front of the mirrors to reflect that energy back and disperse it. And that's why they put those little crystals in the window, and they had those little paintings which we call stained glass, which were actual crystals to illuminate more light.
I mean, what actually does it do? I mean, because I've seen schools.
It creates what they call, the Europeans call seasonal affective disorder, depression and sadness. It lowers the energy in the force field of the body. So the person would tend to be more depressed and be more leading towards self-hatred and things like that. They really turn on themselves.
What kind of artificial light would you recommend for that, especially like the winter months when it's always dark here? It gets dark about 5 o'clock or 4:30.
Well, one should have a full spectrum light bulb, a full spectrum fluorescent light. Those are the ones you want. They cost a little more. They're called full spectrum. You get the full color band from them.
And which areas would you light up? Whatever area you need in your life?
Yeah, you would need the light bulb or the fluorescent light, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whatever section that you...
Yeah, you can use that, and you can use things to accentuate that, accentuate the light itself, such as crystals, mirrors, and chimes, and things of that sort to reflect light.
On the aspect of arranging the home for more power rooms, schools, what have you, even like yards and things like that. I know when you put on a slide about the breakdown and entry into the home, and then you overlap that with the aspect of the principles of Kwanzaa.
Yes.
There was one you had put up dealing with socialization. And how effective is this whole setup without the socialization process first, for especially African people who have been lost or taken away from this basic?
It's not going to work because society is what you use to define yourself, and define your relationship to nature, and define your relationship to God. Without society, you can't even have an individual, because an individual is a social definition itself. To be a complete individual, you would have to have your own vocabulary, and you know, it's a silly concept, but the individual reflects the needs of society. And you have nothing to set your value scale without the society or the village or community, as the Europeans like to call it. So there's no way you can get around that. So you need to strengthen that, because our social structure is so weak as African people because of the impact of colonialism and slavery. We always had to strengthen that one, because we really don't get along, because we're taught not to get along, we're taught not to trust each other, and all that coming out of the colonialism experience and slave experience and that sort of thing. And of course it wasn't founded by Willie Lynch, because Willie Lynch never lived. That's a fictitious character. It comes out of what we call military art, of how to. In the military they have one platoon against another. That's how you structure militaries. That way. You have one little team against another, and you make these internal combats, and then you turn it on to the other one. That's one of the problems with being in a military civilization such as European civilization. We are constantly under the military kind of way of thinking. We don't understand it thoroughly. If you send some soldiers off to war, you teach them to hate the enemy. But when they come back, they're never taught to stop hating, so they reflect more hate back into the society and relationship. Because if they go to war, Vietnam, Korea, Saudi Arabia, they're multiplying that hate toward the internal, and that's never diffused. And the best object for the hate is African people. So every time the Europeans go to war, they come back with more hate toward us, because they never deprogram the hate, and they kind of program the hate in the way they arrange their houses and the way they arrange their furniture. It's a very hateful kind of arrangement that they have when you can walk into their house and say, it don't feel right. You know, and you're feeling the hate the way they program furniture is always in a defense mode to block you from touching them, to block you from coming near them. That's why they kind of separate as a family, you know, why their children kill themselves and all that. It's in the way their whole house is structured, but we're not even aware of that when we go into their homes, how violent it is, because of that whole military male unit they have raised up in. There's a lot of violence in the European period. When I was dealing with the military as a counselor, the Marines, their wives beat up their husbands more than any other group. Marine women that are married to soldiers, they beat the men up more than the army does. They're quite violent. We don't see all of that. And they arrange their furniture that way to block out energy, to block flow. You want a nice flow. You want a nice flow. And whenever you have a block of flow, you have to put a mirror or crystals or chimes to keep that energy moving. But you can just walk and just come into a dead end. You rent a house for them and you open the door and you're right in front of a wall. There's no flow. There's no flow. Sometimes you don't want direct flow in your house. You want to, when you walk into the door and the first thing you see is your refrigerator, you don't want that. So you get a petition to redirect your attention away from the refrigerator. You don't want the flow to come directly in your house. So to bring negative energy directly in your house, you don't want that. You want the door to open, but you want maybe some kind of petition, and you program that petition to purify the energy before it comes any further in your house. So you have those little cord-in, fold-up little petitions. You put that there at your door so it won't come directly in, because you want to purify whatever's coming in your house. Some people just have them take off the shoes, but what the hell is that going to do if you don't do something to purify the energy? You know, taking off the shoe is symbolic of them purifying themselves before they enter into your house, but you got to do something a little bit more than that nowadays, I would say.
In regards to the pineal gland and stimulating, or maybe not, because there's a period of time but it has to rejuvenate. We want to do something to our house to maybe accentuate it, or to like I said, if it's rejuvenating, maybe to block off certain energies of light or whatever.
Oh, they used to do that with clocks, the Africans, with the Sankofa bird and the doo-doo. The doo-doo means spirit, and of course it's negative here, you know, it means doo-doo. Doo-doo is an old African word for spirit. So they have the Sankofa bird, the return bird, the bird that represents Isis, coming out of the gate of male and female and saying that the spirit, the doo-doo, and you call that cuckoo, which comes out of that African thing that opens up the gate to the pineal gland of Ma'at. And that was symbolized by what the Europeans took it and they called it cuckoo, which means doo-doo, which symbolizes Isis, which symbolizes the male and female principle to open the door and all that sort of thing. But everything that we have is turned around so negative, but it's all there. You don't have to really go to Africa, because Africa's right here. It's right here. It doesn't get any better than this. You go over to colonialized Africans now, look out. You'll see Jesus on an altar today in Ghana. You will see that. I mean, you don't get no better than the African Americans here in America today. If you want to get into African culture, essentially, we just don't use the language, and we, for some misguided reason, associate the language with being African. But that's not being African. African is just the way you live and how you approach each other. It has nothing to do with language, but we get misguided, so we get pimped by our brothers on the continent. And the latest craze is this spirituality pimp. You know, they pimp all of us want to be spiritual, so they pimp us and initiate us. We got more priests and priestesses walking around, more people in stools, because they're doing this spirituality pimp off of us now. And they're buying the cloth from the Koreans and Chinese, and then they're selling you these African garments made out of cloth. You know, so we're really being pimped because we're the ones who are re-establishing the Ma'at of our culture. And we're doing that with our houses. Our ancestors did it, our grandmothers and grandfathers, with the wisp broom, and don't put your head on somebody's bed, because you don't want to put that part of your temple on someone else's bed, because you're programming their bed. You see. Oh yeah, they say if a man puts his head on your bed, more than likely he'll end up in your bed. So you don't put a strange man's head on your bed. They knew all of these things. Yeah, because people used to program their crown and put it on people's bed for that purpose.
So there's some validity.
Oh, I would say, yes.
And it's not just superstition.
No, you'll have a somewhat of a confused dream. Someone's spirit in your bed, please. Yeah, then they tell you when you go to bed, you don't put your shoes facing the bed, because you may not ever get out of the bed. When you put your shoes under your bed, you have your shoes facing away from the bed, because you want to keep the energy flowing. See, in and out, keeping the flow. Let the circle be unbroken. You keep the energy flowing. Oh yeah, they were terribly correct now. They may not have known, you know, the historical connection, but they had that much of Africa in them. that they passed along to us. We just, it's our job to reconnect. If it doesn't connect to Africa, toss it out. If you can't connect it back to Africa and it doesn't connect to Africa, don't even bother with it. If it comes from India, China, wherever. So wait a minute, is this leading me back to Africa? No, I ain't touching it. Because it's just going to make you more confused and put you more in contradiction. So. But we're getting there. I mean, we're getting there. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. No, I have a question about different zodiacs. Now, while you were speaking, I noticed that in the different areas of the room where you said, I'm going to use the Gemini and whatever, I thought about it, and that's where me and my family sit in those rooms in our appropriate zodiac spaces. And I'm trying to figure out, I mean, do people, you know, that are born under these specific zodiacs, do we really fall into that just naturally, you know, unconsciously?
Yeah, we do a lot of that subconsciously, as we say today. Yeah, we're listening to that melanin, and it drives us into doing that. Yeah, that's true. Because each zodiac sign moves differently in the womb. During pregnancy, gestation, it's different. Yeah, you're right.
We still do. We sit right in those areas where we're supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I was going to ask you about the air in our homes. A lot of people are buying those electromagnetic machines to do some ionization or whatever. And then also, part two to that question, do you recommend burning incense or candles and things like that?
Well, if you have some respiratory problems and asthma, things like that, I wouldn't really do it that much. Our ancestors did it, but the air wasn't polluted. So we really, and I don't know how much synthetics are in it, because our ancestors weren't using synthetics with the original incense and all that stuff, and now we're getting synthetic oil and we're burning the pollution that we're trying to get away from. So in some ways it can be quite harmful. Some people burn it and then they're not in the room, and then after they burn it, they come in and air out the room, and then they go in like that. So there are ways to do it and get around it. The purifying of the air, that's pretty good if the air is just going to stay in that room. I suppose it would work quite well, but if the air is continuously flowing, then you purify and it's flowing right out. You can tell when someone puts smoke in a room, you see it seeping here and there, and all your purified air is just going here and there. So, but for just purifying the room, yeah, if the air is going to stay in there, I suppose it works quite well. But I don't know. It's better than nothing. They pull the impurities out of the air, and there are quite a few machines that do that.
Yeah, so do they? I was actually thinking about purchasing one for a baby's room.
Yeah, they do quite well for the purifying the air, because it's quite dangerous, actually, the air from the flame retardants and the fabric that the baby's laying against, which causes sterility, as we call it. And the formaldehyde in the carpet, all these chemicals that the baby is breathing, and you just doing something in self-defense. I would say, yeah.
Now, what about carpet?
The carpet has the chemical in the rubber underneath the fabric, which they use to bond the fabric to the rubber. Is a chemical in that, and this is chemically polluting, along with the permanent pressed clothes and all this. We're breathing a hell of a lot of synthetics, which are dangerous, because they combine with other chemicals, and they cause a reaction that they don't know what's going to be the end of it, nor do they care.
So when you're doing polluted air, would it be best since outside air with cars, smoke outside, or then you're so-called trying to purify your house? Sometimes maybe it's best to have the air just flow through, you keep it in motion as opposed to trying to contain it.
Yeah, well, usually you want to trap it, purify it where the main flow comes from. So you really have to know where the main flow of air is coming from, so you purify it at that main entry point for the most air. So you get the cleaner air. That's why you have to put the smoke in the room and see what's going on, where the majority of air is coming from, and then put the purifier there.
Instead of in the room that you want to purify.
Yeah, you have to know where the air is coming from. Yeah, because you may be putting the purifier where the air is going out, and you're just missing the whole benefit. So.
On that note, I know you mentioned also about cycles in terms of the cleansing of the body cleanses to eat fruit, especially from 4 a.m. up to 12 noon. You talk about purifying air also, and using fruit. I understand there's organic cleansers you can use also that's made from fruit.
Oh yeah.
If you maybe use that at the entrance, the air comes in during that time period, and let it flow through. Let's keep the door open or something like that. Would that have an added benefit?
That's right. You want to put it at the entrance and put grounding at the exit to pull it out.
Okay.
If you program it in, you have to program it out. There's no getting around that.
Something to draw it out.
Right. That's how the whole purification concept works in the first place. You breathe in the air. Air is nothing more than big vital minerals. They're just so big. There's so much space between the molecules that you call it gas. But you're breathing in minerals, and those minerals combine with the minerals in the food, and those minerals cause what you call energy. You don't breathe air because you'll suffocate and die. You breathe air because you need the minerals in the air to combine with the minerals in the food, which is a negative ground. The positive meets the negative and forms electricity or forms magnetism or forms heat. The food itself is not giving you the energy, it's how it combines with the unseen world. The seen combines with the unseen and produces this energy. But we are taught kind of from the Europeans about this thing, food gives you energy, but it has nothing to do with it at all, biochemically, nothing at all. Because we do everything to the food. We chew it, we have segmentary action, peristaltic action, we move it along, we squirt out digestive enzyme on it from the liver and the pancreas. We are doing everything to the food. And the food is giving us energy. Why are we doing everything to it? That we do all this stuff to it so we can get it in a state where we can combine it with the unseen world, which we call ether, which we call the divinity, which you call minerals, which come from the near, which comes from the net, which comes from Isis. So we combine it with the female with the male again to produce electro energy, magnetic energy, heat energy. But if they tell you all of this in biology and chemistry, they have to talk about melanin. So they're not going to do that.
Well, you mentioned also that the vitamins and minerals are actually contained already within your being. So the food, is that more of the drawing power?
Yeah.
Drawing out of the, or causing the body, like more of a cause, more so than an effect,
Precisely what's going on, because you cannot add to anything that God has made. There's no way you can do it. It's a preposterous concept to think that you can add to something that God has made. God made you, how can you add to you? God made air, how can you add to the air? You may do something stupid and destroy it, but you cannot add to it. So the food wants to go through its rites of passage, which is called being digested by you. And then the food forms a bond with the minerals in your system, and that causes what you call a pull of the minerals in the air, which you call gas, which we call fluid. I don't want to get all lost. Well, so in any case, fluid is anything that moves around a rock. If water moves around a rock, then we call it fluid. If air moves around a rock, we call it fluid in science. So we combine that with the fluid. We combine the earth with the fluid, and we form this energy, which is a magnetic and electrical and heat. And that's the process. But you can only connect the earth to something like air with plants. So you put the plants in your body, connecting your earth to the heavens. You're duplicating nature outside. You got the air, the plants, and the earth. Inside you have the earth, your food, and the air. You're just duplicating nature. It's not very difficult to understand the body. It's just duplicated right before you. It's kind of like if you look at nature, you're looking at yourself. You're just another expression of the same statement of God. And that's what they do with the houses. You ground the energy. And that's why I was saying you look at where the most flow is, the most traffic, that's usually south. That's where you're grounding the energy. Most people, if they want to line up according to the planets, they look for the sunrise and they know that's east. So they want to make their bed face east. You want your feet to face east because you want your spirit to go east. So you face your bed east, the feet of your bed east. Or you line up your desk east. Some people line up by the sun to get more of that energy in. You follow me? And then you look at the moon so you can line up north and south, where it rises and where it sets. You know, south and north, that's north and south for the moon. East and west is for the sun. But that's when you get into that kind of lineup. But a lot of people can't do that because they don't make their own houses, Some things you can line up according to the sun, but most things you cannot. And these houses made by the Europeans, it's kind of difficult.
So if you go in your room with a compass, you
Yeah, you can do
know
it.
more.
You can do it, yeah. That eliminates those problems. I forgot about the compass.
Okay, I'm trying that today.
We'll call this discussion to a close and move on to the next one again.